everybody, and welcome back to Young Adult Edition. We've got another brand new episode for you today. We're talking all about auditioning audiobook narrators. So we are going to be doing a deep dive into that audition process, what it looks like, how to find the right person. And we've actually had a great conversation about audiobooks here before, and we are going to be doing a deep dive today. So we talked about how to work with audiobook narrators, and we talked about some of the process, but today we're getting really in-depth on how to actually find your audiobook narrators and what that audition process looks like. Thanks so much for joining us, guys. If you are with us live, we want to hear from you. Jump down into those comments and leave your questions for today's guests are all about audiobook narrating auditions. And we will get as many of those answered as possible. And if you happen to be on our rebroadcast, we want to hear from you too. Leave us your questions, leave us your comments down below, and we will make sure that we are monitoring those comments over the next couple of days and weeks, and we will get all of your questions answered. And if you happen to have something that is so dang good that we did not answer on air today, we might just be able to do a brand new episode focused on that particular question. So hit us with your best and we'll see what we can do. We're super excited to see you all here at Young Adult Edition. I am joined by my beautiful co-host, the lovely Elle Beaumont. How are you doing today, Elle?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am good. It's another beautiful Monday morning here on Young Adult Edition. Lots and lots of fun things going on. How was your weekend? Did you have anything interesting going on?
Oh, it was crazy. I mean, I've been writing and I had to also visit my parents because they're redoing the horse paddock there and I got to spend time with my horsey. So
I know. I love seeing your photos of your horse. It's so much fun. I am coming up and we're just going to hang out with your horses. Like, that's the way it works.
Yeah. Well, they'll love it. They love it. So, because they're snuggle bugs. And how was your weekend?
Busy. Oh my gosh, so busy. I've been doing so many things. I actually just started a brand new series, which comes out beginning of 2019, and I'm very excited about. Lots of cool things going on. So, and I know there's a lot of cool things going on in the book world too.
Yes.
A lot of which have to do with me. The world's revolving around me right now, guys. Sorry, it's not all about me, but it also was a little bit about me today.
Yes.
We do have some cool new book releases coming out this week. Let me toss those up on screen. As you can see, we've got quite a few books out this weekend. We're calling it the Week of Blue. There's a lot of blue, beautiful covers out with those blue and pink and purple tones. And as you can see, I have the last of 3 book releases in 3 weeks coming out tomorrow. So if you guys are a fan of retellings, if you are looking for a wintry book, if you're looking for a book where the seasons are a little bit off and a little bit awkward, kind of like our weather has been since I wrote this book in January. It's been
I blame you. I blame you for that. Like tornadoes in Massachusetts, I blame Jack.
It's 100% my fault. Like, it really, truly is. The Revolution of Jack Frost comes out tomorrow. Lots of fun parties, lots of fun things going on for that. And so we will be chatting a little bit about that at some point, I'm sure. But if you have had wonky weather, it's 100% because of this book. And unfortunately... Unfortunately, that is my fault. Sorry. Apologies. I didn't know that was going to happen or I wouldn't have written it. Sorry. Connie says, I see one that's on its way to me. Yeah. Lots of fun books coming out this week, girl. Lots of fun books. And lots of stuff going on in the book world as well. We don't always have a ton of book world news, but dang, this week we've had so much in the world of books. Elle, tell us a little bit about the big month-long event that's going on now that a bunch of people are participating in.
Yes. So for those of you who don't know, NaNoWriMo has started, and that is a month-long of writing. You set your goals. It can be as little as 10,000, as big as 50,000, or whatever you want to set your cap at. It's just insanity. But I love the website because it actually calculates everything for you and makes writing process a little less stressful and a little bit more manageable. So this year, I'm actually partaking in it, and I'm trying to finish up a short story and a full-length novel. So for me, but yeah, it's just fun for writers. It's when the writing community really comes together and cheers each other on, and it's just fantastic. I love it.
It's fantastic for accountability.
It really is. You know, like there are author groups that are specifically for this, There's Instagram where authors are just like, yay, go you, go you. And it's really awesome. It really is.
It's fun to participate in. And this started out in November. They've actually branched out. They've got some throughout the year. There's a couple of different ones that you can participate in, but this is the main one. This is the one that originated the whole NaNoWriMo scene. And so lots of fun things. Connie's actually saying good luck on your writing. So
thank you.
We're cheering people on. Cheering people on.
Yes, absolutely. I have partaken in the July camp that they do, and I think they have one in April. But I was able to write 2 successful stories in July. So it's just awesome because it like really gets your juices going. Like, I have to do this, you know. But also in relation to that, Crescent Sea Publishing is actually opening for submissions in 2019. It's open now for submissions for some anthologies that we're doing. And the topics are circus, steampunk, and cyberpunk. So if you need any inspiration for anything for NaNoWriMo, there you go.
Yeah, if you are excited, if you are writing, if you need something to write, if you want to focus on a shorter story as opposed to a full-length novel, this is a great way to get involved. And so many good things have been coming from these anthologies. So we do hope you will check those out. Now, switching gears just a little bit, recently there's been a little bit of an uproar in the Bookstagram community. Earlier this week, an article came out that was not necessarily the nicest in relation to Bookstagrammers. And so we know Bookstagrammers are this amazing community of people who take beautiful pictures of books. They put it out on social media. They interact with each other. They share book recommendations. And some people were not quite thrilled with that. Some people who were not in the community and blasted our beautiful Bookstagram community just a little bit. And the Bookstagrammers have risen up. They have told everybody what this really is, what the community means to them. And it's turned into this wonderful thing where everyone is so supportive of each other. So if you are in the Bookstagram community, shout out to you. We do love you. Elle and I are both active members of the Bookstagram community, and we love seeing what you are creating. So drop us a link. If you happen to be a Bookstagrammer, we want to hear from you. We want to support you. We want to be over there commenting and liking and interacting with your posts. So leave us your Instagram links so that we can see your beautiful Bookstagram photos. And maybe we just have some interesting things coming up for YOU. So stay tuned. And in our last thing for our book news today, we do want to mention that there's a brand new book tour hosted by J.M. Sullivan and yours truly. It is the Brewing Books Retelling Tour. And if you happen to be a young adult author of retelling, so we're talking fairy tales, legends, nursery rhymes, books and stories that people know really well, that it would be easily recognized, we would love to have you join us. All you gotta do is email J.M. Sullivan. I will pop that info below later on, and you will be able to participate with us. You are going to be writing a blog post about your retelling, or you can run extra contests if you want. And then we are going to have people hop around from blog to blog to blog, and one or maybe more, depending on how many authors are joining us. We have a decent chunk of authors right now, but if it's a huge group of authors, we might break it up into a couple of different prizes. But right now it's scheduled for one big prize for one lucky person. They get a full-length retelling book from each author and a cozy drink like hot chocolate or coffee or tea or hot apple cider. It's going to be amazing. And one lucky person is going to win. I think right now we're up to like 17, 18 authors. So that's a ton of books and a ton of cozy drinks. So we might actually break it up into a couple of different prizes. But we would love for you to get involved if you happen to be a retellings author. Whether you have a full length or a novella, you can join. Prizes do need to be a full length. So you can either give away several novellas that will count as one. You can give away like an anthology, or you can give away someone else's full-length retelling, and you're welcome to give away your novella as well. But it will feature your story, whether it is full-length or novella length. So we would love to hear from you. We'll drop that info down in the comments below if you want to get involved in that. Now today, we are going to be talking all about auditioning audiobook narrators. We do have a dear friend of ours here at Young Adult Edition and on my author platform. Her name is Kat Stroot, and she is going to be hanging out talking all about audiobooks today. And we are super excited. So if you've got questions, if you've got comments, now is the time. Go ahead and drop those down below. We would love to hear from you. Kat, how are you doing?
Great. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm happy to be here.
We are thrilled to hang out with you again. If you guys did not see her, she may or may not have made more than one appearance recently. So make sure you are checking back in our videos. I'm not going to say where. I do want you to go search for it, but it is very, very, very interesting. So I would love for you guys to go check that out. Kat, tell us, how did you get involved with doing audiobooks?
So I, first and foremost, I'm an actor, and that's always been my main focus. I have a degree in theater from NYU, and actually literally grew up in the theater. My dad is a professor of theater at a college, and we lived across the street. So I have just been surrounded by it for my entire life. I've always been fascinated by voice work because it's something that is so unique. To be able to tell a story it's very close to sort of traditional oral storytelling. And if you've ever watched a traditional storyteller, they're up on their feet or they're animated in their seats as they tell their stories. They live those stories, and you can hear it in their voices. So it's always been cool for me to have the opportunity to try to play with that a little bit. And I got into it just purely because I wanted to. I've done a little bit of voice work for animated things. I've done some voice work for documentaries, doing voiceovers and stuff like that. And it was kind of a natural transition to then go into audiobooks, especially because I have 3 young children and I read to them all the time, or at least I did before they learned to read, because now they go off and read without me. So, so that's kind of the journey that I took to get there.
Fantastic. Now, how long have you been doing audiobook narration?
Only for the last, I'd say 4 or 5 years or so. It was after my mom was living with us. She unfortunately passed away from cancer, and I went through a really rough time mentally, and it was very hard for me to go find work when I still had my youngest wasn't even a year old when that happened. So I ended up finding audiobooks as a way to continue to work and to be able to have a source of expression without having to compromise the well-being of my children or my time with my children, which was very precious, especially at that moment. So I built a booth. I built a recording studio in the closet in our house, and that sort of just took off from there. So then that was 5 years ago. Yes.
Fantastic. All right, so today we are taking a deep dive look at what it is to audition as an audiobook narrator. So tell us a little bit about your end of it, and then I want to talk a little bit about the author or the publisher end of it. So for you as a narrator, what does this process look like for you? How do you get these jobs? How do people approach you? And then what steps do you go through to actually complete this audition?
So that's a really good, obviously, good question. It's a little bit complicated to answer because there are lots of different kinds of ways, depending on the type of audition and even the type of publishing house, whether you're going through a big name professional company, or if you're using, say, ACX, which is the Audiobook Connection Exchange run by Amazon. With something, I guess the most accessible thing for narrators who are starting out would be something like ACX, where it's you sign up, you make a profile, you upload a couple of samples, and then you just search. People will post their books, and publishing companies will post. You can, using those platforms, you can work with a producer who will then take care of all of the back-end audio stuff. But it's actually less common to do that than it is to become a narrator producer. And I have done a fair amount of narrator producing as well, but I like the sound engineering aspect of it. It is a lot of work. It's a very different kind of work than the readings themselves. But the reason that I bring this up is because if you're going to be using something like ACX and you're going to be doing an audition like the type that you would be doing as a narrator, publisher, producer, you would receive the sides. You'd go through. You'd find an audition that you were interested in, and then the author would have provided a synopsis of the book, what you would expect. They will post a little bit about what they're looking for in a narrator and what they envision for the book. And then they will have a set of sides, which is usually an excerpt from the book, or and usually it's something from either the high point of emotion or a point where they have the most of their main characters talking with one another, or something that just really gives you a feel for the style. And that's just because they want to hear what you're going to be doing in those important moments and with those important characters. So you'll take that and you will work on it and create those characters and create whatever you want to create, and then record it and master it and then send it. That is a lot of work, because for every statistics for you, for every hour of finished audio that you have, you will have you're hearing 4 hours worth of work. So if you have an 8-hour long novel, that's a lot. That's a lot. So when you're doing these auditions, you need to sort of, maybe you're not going to be as perfectionist as you would be for an actual thing, but you also don't want to be too sloppy, because then somebody's going to say, "Oh, this is going to be my finished work. I'm not going to do that. That's not something I'm interested in." On the other side of the table is the more professional auditions, in which case you would generally be going through agents. You would have either somebody approach you, or your agent would approach a company, and the sides are basically the same. The idea of the audition is basically the same. And either they would have you record off-site and send it in, or they might actually bring you into a studio, and then you would actually get to work with a director. Sometimes the director is the author. More oftentimes, it's actually somebody who does this for a living and is an audiobook director. But the author is always there on hand to say, "Oh, no, that's not what I meant." It's like, "I want you to do this." Those are my favorite kinds of auditions, because working collaboratively is always going to produce a better result than working in a vacuum. Which is not to say that some of the things that you do on your own are not great. Honestly, most of my work has been done on my own that way. But yeah, if you get the chance, you want to work with people.
Fantastic. Okay, so we do have a question down in the comments. Belinda would like to know, is there an audiobook that you would really love to narrate, or have you narrated any book just for yourself?
Oh, that's a really good question. There are so many that I would really love to get to do. Anything really with rich characters, with characters who are, really well fleshed out, are really fun for actors. Yes, you can say that I've narrated stuff just for myself. I haven't necessarily recorded it, but I've definitely sort of acted out and played around with different characters that I find really intriguing. I'm trying to think of an example, but of course, now that you asked me that specifically, I can't think of one. But and I mean, kids' books obviously are very, very big and bold. So those you are meant to be read aloud. Sorry, and that's another thing, is like, if it's a book that was, that lends itself well to being read out loud, it's going to be a very different experience than one that was meant to be sort of silent and meditative. I think that this is going off topic a little bit, but I think that one of the biggest things for authors to think about as they're putting their work out to be narrated is that one of the most important jobs that a narrator has, and also potentially one of the most difficult, is to figure out what voice to use for the narrator. Because in some cases, if the book is from a first-person perspective, easy. That character is fleshed out in the story, you're all good. But there are a lot of books out there that are narrated in even the second person, like in these weird tenses that are not necessarily easily relatable. And you have to decide, who is that narrator? How do you, because if you don't have a character for that narrator, you're going to end up with monotone reading, and that is boring for absolutely everybody.
Yeah.
So that's something to think about, is like, how does this person, maybe they have great characters, but if most of your book is not dialogue, you want to make sure that your narrator can do something with the voice that you have created. And it is your voice, and you should definitely be able to work with whichever narrator you choose, so that you can get that fully realized without making compromises.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about what it looks like from your perspective as an audiobook narrator. Before we move on, I did want to ask, typically, how much do you read for an audition? Is it like a couple of pages? Is it a chapter? Is it a bigger section? Is it like a time limit? Like, what does that look like?
It really varies from publisher to publisher and from author to author. I have on occasion been asked to read the entire book, and that's a no-go because then basically I'm doing the whole thing for free.
Yeah.
So
wow.
not a good idea. Don't ask your narrators to do that. And there have been some that are little tiny paragraphs. I feel like those ones probably don't give enough information to the author to be able to make a selection. So I think most of them are between a paragraph and a page. That's usually standard. Sometimes people will want you to do an entire chapter. So it really varies. If it's the kind of book where it's just like run-on sentences to get this particular feel, then you don't want to cut that off in the middle. You need to follow through until you get to the end of your thought. But at the same time, you don't want to do half of the novel because you're not going to get any auditions.
For sure. Elle, before we move on to looking at the other side where authors are coming in to do these auditions, do you have questions on what it looks like as a narrator to be doing this?
I don't know, because that was quite informative. I guess the only
I can be verbose sometimes.
No, that's completely fine. Like this has been very informative. I guess my only question, as a narrator, you had said that you prefer like deeper characters. Now, do you find that fantasy is more in line with that? What kind of you don't have to go into detail with titles, but what have you narrated mostly?
Fantasy is probably a very, very broad way to categorize the majority of my work. I have done a significant amount of satire. I have done a significant amount of sci-fi. I've definitely done some stuff with dark elves and crazy things. I won't go into details, but very sort of dark, wry stuff. And on the other hand, I've also done a lot of more light sort of kids stuff. But even kids stuff, like the characters are still deep, even though it's rhyming or easily written or whatever. It's not empty. It's there is so much room to create character and create things. So yeah, genre is definitely something to take into account. There are people who specialize in, like, I specialize in historical documentation, so documentary style, maybe reference books. I don't know if I'd call it a reference book, but nonfiction certainly. And then some people thrive more with the sort of realistic fiction novels. And then there's people who really get into sort of the historical fiction, because there is this very strange phenomenon where we think historical fiction has to be read in this sort of faux British something that just people expect. So there are people who just specialize in doing that. Personally, I put a lot of work into the accents that I do, and so that like fake thing, I can't do it. That's just for me. I think actually one of that brings up another aspect, which is, for characters, a lot of times they don't speak the way that we speak. And especially if you have a lot of characters in a story, accent is a great way to differentiate different people. You don't want to do too much. Sorry, excuse me. You don't want to do too much if it's not written into the book already. But you can put little like, dialect, accent type things in there. I worked on a story at one point that had a character in it who was Kolkatari. She was a little girl who came from a Bengali family, and there was a scene where she was speaking and it referred to her accent over and over and over. I am very sensitive to BC issues, we'll say, and being politically correct. Like I would never take a role of a person of color. Personally, I'm straight up a white girl. Like there's no way that I would do that. That would be horrible, I think. But here's this book where I'm narrating, and the main characters are all right down the line of where I am. So this is a good book for me to be narrating. However, there is this one character who has very different cultural background and very different outlook on life. And I did more research for that character than I did for any other character in that book. And she was in like maybe 3 pages because I wanted to make sure that I was doing it justice. I didn't want to just gloss over. I didn't want to sound like Apu from The Simpsons and like just, something stereotypical. I find that incredibly disrespectful, and I did not want to do that. So that's another thing. And again, for those of you working with characters from lots of different backgrounds, if you want those characters to be honored, I would definitely recommend finding a narrator who is willing to put in the work to give respect to all those different cultures instead of just sort of glossing over it because, oh, nobody will notice.
Okay, so speaking of accents, I know you mentioned that you do invest a lot of time in your accents. I just need to know, how many accents do you do, or like how many do you feel like you have really, really strongly developed in your repertoire?
So I've done things. I did one story where the character starts off as a little German Jewish girl, and then is sent on the kinder transport to England. And over the course of the story, she learns British English, like received pronunciation, RP, British RP. So over the course of, this was actually a play, not a book, but over the course of the play, I had to develop this. In addition to like growing from like a 9-year-old into a 17-year-old, I also had to go through this whole thing where in each scene I had a different accent, and it went from full-on speaking German to a German accented British to, okay, now it's more British, but there's still a little German, to, okay, now it's full-on British pronunciation. That was probably one of the biggest challenges. So that's, and that I like that, because that does give you that challenge. But to answer your question in terms of like how many do I have, I find that hard to answer, and I tell that story because I do that for every part that I get, for every book that I get. Like I don't just go like, oh yeah, no, I've done Cockney so many times, like I can totally do Cockney, because I will inevitably get there and go like, is this the right version of Cockney? Let's go look it up. Like, and Scottish I've done a number of times. Like, okay, is this a thick brogue or is this a not? So I've done like 20 different accents at least, but I would hesitate to say like, oh yeah, I could just walk into a room and do this and it would be perfect. It's like, I know that I am very, very confident that I can get it there, but I'm gonna put in the work anyway.
Fantastic. All right, listen, if you are joining us live, we do want to hear from you. If you've got questions, if you've got comments, drop them down in the comments below. We would love to hear from you. And if you are finding this interesting, if this is helpful to you, we need you to do us a favor. Jump down and hit that share button, because that tells Facebook we're doing something amazing here, and it shares this video with more and more people. And when Facebook shares it with more people, we get more people hanging out with us, and we can do more episodes of Young Adult Edition just like this one. We can bring on amazing guest stars. We can learn about some awesome topics, and we can do things outside of Young Adult Edition as well, like the last time we had Kat on. I'm not telling you where, I'm not telling you what, but go find it in the videos because it is dang good. So if this has been helpful to you, if this is helping you out, if you feel like as an author this could help other authors, jump down and hit that share button and help us out so that we can do more fabulous things here at Young Adult Edition. Belinda is in the comments, and she is wondering, what is your favorite company to narrate for? So have you worked with a number of different companies, or are you kind of more along the independent line?
I am more along the independent line. I do most of my stuff myself, but I have worked with a lot of different companies. And as much as I respect that as an awesome question, I'm not going to answer it because I don't want to politically, unfortunately, insult any other companies accidentally. So I'll just keep that one close to the chest.
Connie is in the comments. She might have missed this, and you did, Connie. This was actually earlier on, so I just want to throw it out here. How did Kat get into narrating? So that is actually earlier. We did chat about that. Go check that out. But she does have a second comment here. She wants to know, what was your first audio job?
My first audio job was back in college, I think. I'll say my first real one was in college. And it was a very, very strange little radio play that does it. I don't know if it even counts as a narrative thing. It was a very abstract piece of work by an NYU film student who was a good friend of mine. But that helps me to build my resume, and that's how networking works. So that is all good. I know that when I was a kid, my dad was working for actually a video game company, and he was running auditions to do the voices for the video game. And I remember doing some stuff for that, but I don't think that I don't know if that game ever came out, actually. To be fair. But again, from a young age, I was exposed to that sort of thing, and I was aware of it and interested in it. So, and I played around with it when I was a kid, even if I didn't do full-on jobs.
Fantastic. Okay, we are going to be doing a live reading in just a few minutes. If you still have questions, if you've got comments, we want to hear from you. Jump down to those comments below and let us know what you want to know about when it comes to working with an audiobook narrator and the audition process. Kat, I do want to know, for you, as you are working kind of more along the lines of doing this in the indie world, how do people approach you as an audiobook narrator?
You mean like what's the methodology, or?
Yeah. So if we have people looking at us right now and wanting to hire you, how would they go about doing it right now?
Oh, fantastic. So there's a couple ways. You can send me an email directly to, start discussions. Then that would just be katstroot@gmail.com. So that's katstroot@gmail.com. And the other thing is, you can find my profile on ACX. I do have a published profile on ACX. I don't think I've updated it recently, but but it's there, and you can check it out. You can check out the couple of samples I do have on there. And if you want to hear other stuff, just let me know. But more importantly, if you're interested, then please send me some sides, and I will send you a little sample.
Fantastic. All right. We are going to be jumping into a live reading. I'm super excited because Kat is actually going to be reading a selection from one of my stories. We are going to hear a little bit from the Siren War Saga, which is my mermaid series. It's all about a girl named Selena. I say girl, I should say a mermaid named Selena. We also get to meet her partner, Merrick. We are going to be meeting her twin brother, Caspian, and her younger sister, Coralie. And we are going to see the very beginning of the Siren War Saga, which, P.S., little shout out, little self-promo here, just hit a bestsellers list. I'm super excited for this, and we're going to hear just the beginning of this from Kat. So y'all ready, girl?
Sure. So before I jump into this, I'm sorry, my furnace just kicked on, and I'm trying to make it be quiet, and it's not. So I apologize if it's a little harder to hear me.
You're good.
But so one thing that I do before I jump into this, I do want to just let your amazing viewers know that there are a couple of different ways that you can approach doing a reading. And a lot of it has to do with how much time you've had to prepare. So you can do a cold reading, which is you have the actor come into the studio, and you sit down and you're like, here's this, read it. And they will just read it. Sometimes they'll get to read it through once or twice beforehand, sometimes not. So a cold reading is basically an unprepared reading. And then there is a prepared reading, in which case a week or so before the audition, you'd send them the materials, you'd send them the sides, and they would have time to actually start to develop those characters and figure out, like, okay, this is what I want the narrator to sound like, and this is how I'm going to approach this particular emotional moment, or anything like that. And that would be a prepared reading. You're going to get different information from each kind. but they're both going to be useful. It depends on what specifically you are looking for. If you're looking for more of a sort of what is this person going to do when it's finished, then the prepared reading is probably going to be a better bet for you. The cold reading is like, okay, how much raw talent does this person have? Like, can they read? Can they pronounce words? Can they, do I like listening to the sound of their voice, or is the sound of their voice very grating? All of that kind of stuff. So, and then there's something in the middle, which I refer to as a warm reading, which is basically when you have the script ahead of time, but not so much that you've actually had time to prepare. So just so everybody knows before we get started, what I'm about to do is, I would say, a cold to warm. It's a lukewarm reading because I've only had a chance to read it over a couple of times and have not actually read it out loud at all. So this will be a first. This will be fun.
Fantastic. So we are going to jump in. I'm just going to intro this for a second because we are going to clip this out and put it on social media later on. So we are going to be jumping in to a live reading of the Siren Wars saga by K.m. Robinson, read by Kat Stroot, and we are going to meet the very beginning scenes from this story as we learn who Selena is and we meet some of the people in her life. Kat, take it away.
A well-placed accusation, even a small, insignificant one, has the power to change the tides and start a war. This is something I've grown up learning. My kind have always had to be careful with our words. We have to be. For the last 100 years, we've had to fight against the actions of one mermaid. Well, to be fair, one mermaid, her mother, and a group of followers, but that's just semantics. For 100 years before that, we had to be careful too. We had an agreement with the humans. Are you intentionally trying to look like that? I ask, flicking my tail flirtatiously. Like what, Selena? Merrick glances up from where he's working on the seafloor against a rock, his brow low. Rooting, I reply. His face lights up, realizing that he has been caught. Sorry, Len. He uses his pet name for me. No one else is allowed to call me that, as he moves the knife in his hands, cutting the rope. He brushes his blue hair back with a smoldering grin before lifting himself off the sand, swimming over to me. Need a hand with that? We're fine, Merrick, Caspian says. Go back to not paying attention to the rest of us. I didn't miss that much, he mutters. Sure, Caspian replies. Merrick gives him a mock, annoyed look, rolling his eyes as he grabs the net, helping us to untangle the rock. How did we get stuck on cleanup duty? Merrick asks, using his most charming voice as he sidles up next to me. We volunteered, I remind him. He murmurs. You volunteered. I just followed. Nothing new there, brother, Caspian teases loudly. Always following my twin around no matter where she goes. Caspian has no idea why Merrick and I spend so much time together. Shut up, Casp, Merrick chides, winking at me. What neither of the boys knows is that I didn't volunteer to just help out. I'm on a mission. It amazes me how the humans are still so intent on capturing us, Caspian murmurs. It's been 100 years since Persephone ruined the alliance for us. Be fair, Casp. It wasn't just Persephone. Dante was instrumental in all of this. They'll say she was the mastermind and her daughter was just followed along. My fingers work to cut away the net waving gently in the current. The knife in my hand is far more effective than the broken shells, I sometimes resort to using for cutting up the instruments of death that fishermen leave in the ocean when they snag on something like coral or rocks. It's a shame we can't just sing this work away. Coralie swims over, attempting to carry a large, round ball. Barely manages to roll it across the sea floor. That's not the way Sirene works, Starfish, I correct her. And stop playing with that cannonball. My little sister pouts, looking up. I'm not playing with it. I'm trying to help, he mutters. You don't need to collect human things. Just remove the dangerous ones, I remind her. Coralie has only been out to help us a few times. but I'd rather she stayed home. She's too young for me to be able to sneak off and run on missions while she's with us. And Caspian will start to catch on if I dump her in his care all the time. It would still be easier if we could spin it away, she grumbles, running her hair through her blonde hair. We are not Sirens Corps, and don't even suggest that, he snapped. Caspian and Merrick stopped to look at me. I try not to blush as I lowered my voice. We are not like that, Coralie. Tyranny has been outlawed since great-great-grandmother Isla taught Persephone tyranny of things. We're better off, Caspian mumbles. We don't need the humans to survive. They haven't been able to find us in 100 years anyway, so who cares what stupid stunt Persephone and her mother pulled? You mean, aside from hundreds of dead humans, the mer population splitting, our entire kingdom having to leave our home and move here, and, oh, yes, the entire human race hunting us for over a century? I chide him. Settle down, children, Merrick chimes in playfully, trying to quell the impending argument. This is why Caspian has never been informed of my extracurricular activities over the last few years. This is also why Merrick has been on most of my missions with me. Well, maybe we could train the sharks to move this stuff for us, Coralie suggests. I certainly have my hands full with this one.
Fantastic. That was so amazing. I absolutely loved it. If you were loving on this too, we do want to hear from you. Give us a little love down in the comments below. And P.S., if you want to read more of the Siren Wars saga, it's currently free on all the buying platforms. You can grab the ebook right now and see if this is a series for you, which P.S. just hit bestseller. So let us know. We would love to hear more from you down below. And if you have any final questions, we are going to get those answered for you right now. Feel free to pop those in there. And don't forget to be hitting that share button if this has been helpful to you. Elle, I know I dominated a lot of this conversation because that's kind of the way we work around here. Do you have any questions before I kind of wrap this baby up?
I don't, because Kat was so informative. Any questions that I would have had, she answered. This was a fantastic episode, though, honestly.
So good, right? I love taking a look at the behind the scenes of things because as a book community, as authors, we don't necessarily see all of the behind the scenes things of what goes into producing our books. So here in Young Adult Edition, we do like to give people inside looks on how to work with printers and how to do formatting and how we work with people who make book swag and how we do things like audiobooks. And we love taking these deep dive behind the scenes looks. Kat has been so incredibly instructive today. Any last things, Kat, that we need to know before we say goodbye to you about working with an audiobook narrator that would make this process a little bit easier for authors looking and publishers looking to get into this?
My biggest thing is a little cliche, but the biggest thing is just communication. You are going to get a much, much better performance out of whoever you hire if you are having a dialogue with them and making sure that, respectfully, of course, that you are getting your message across and that you are hearing what they are telling you. There was an incident that I had working on a book where the author kept saying, we want no emotion. We want no emotion. We want no character. We want no nothing. We just want it blank. And I actually ended up sending them a version. I sent him an audio file. It was like, I understand what you are going for, and here are my concerns. I will read it for you once the way that you want me to do it, and then I'm going to read it once in a way that's slightly more inflected, just so that you can see what I'm talking about. And we ended up having a fantastic back and forth, and we found a really great way to do that book. And it was not overly monotone, which was good. And but it was not so over the top that it felt cartoony, and that's what he was really looking for, was just not cartoon. So however you end up reaching out to people, especially if you are an independent publisher, author, and you want to use a system like ACX, which is, by the way, just acx.com. They've got a great system where you can talk to narrators. As soon as they audition for you, you can start sending them messages. You don't have to hire them before you can start talking to them. And you can say, like, oh, I really liked your audition, but I hated this little piece. Can you maybe try this way instead? And you're going to learn a lot based on those interactions. Because if you make a request like that and somebody comes back at you with like, well, if you didn't like it, then tough because this is the way that I'm going to do it. It's not going to be a great working relationship. Same thing if they like send you one-word answers or just aren't engaging with you. That would be sort of a red flag that I would recommend trying to avoid. But yeah, as long as you are in constant communication and really make sure that as you go along, you are checking in with each other and making sure that everybody is still happy with the work that's coming out, you're going to have a really good experience.
Fantastic. We really appreciate you being here. And if you are watching us live or on our replay and you want more information about working with an audiobook narrator, we had a great episode about 2 months ago, I think it was. We had audiobook narrator Stacey Glombowski on to talk about the relationship between working with an audiobook narrator and a publisher or an author. So you can learn more there. Today we did a deep dive all about the audition process and how that works between people who are looking to hire audiobook narrators and the audiobook narrator. If you still have questions or comments, we want to hear from you. Jump down into those comments below and we will make sure that we are getting those questions monitored. We're going to be monitoring the comments and we'll get as many answered as possible. And if you happen to have something that is so dang good about audiobook narration that we did not cover in our audiobook narrator episodes, we will happily get these ladies back to answer more questions for you. We'd love to have Kat back to talk about other aspects of working with audiobook narrators as well. So drop your questions below and we will make sure that we are taking a look at those over the next couple of days and weeks. Kat, thank you so much for being here. We do appreciate you joining us. Tell us one more time where everybody can contact you.
So I unfortunately had to take down my website, so it's not there right now. So I'm not going to give that to you. When it is back up, it'll probably just k.m.robinson.com, but it's not there now. Just so you know, it'll be back. And then you can send an email to katstroot@gmail.com. That's KATSTROOT@gmail.com. And I am also Kat Stroot on the ACX Audiobook Exchange. At acx.com. So you can go ahead and look up my profile there.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us. And ladies and gentlemen, if you have not seen Kat's other episodes here on my author platform, make sure you check those out. You are not going to want to miss those. Trust me, it is amazing and it's slightly different than audiobooks. I think you guys are really going to like it if you haven't seen it already. So make sure you check those out. Kat, thank you so much for joining us. We do appreciate it. And we cannot wait to have you back. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a great day.
Bye. All right. If you are excited for more Young Adult Edition, we've got some big things coming up here on the show next week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time right here on facebook.com/k.m.robinson books. We are going to be talking about co-authored book series. We are actually going to be chatting with Megan Linsky and Alicia Rades. We are going to be talking about a new series they have coming out next year, and we're going to take a look at how that works. So how to find a co-author, how to effectively work with a co-author, what readers can expect from a book or a series that is written by two different people. Do you go chapter by chapter? Do you go scene by scene? Do you go character by character? We're going to be breaking this down with Megan and Alicia next week, and we cannot wait to see you. It is going to be 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time right here on facebook.com/k.m.robinson books every single Monday. We would love to see you here, and we have some incredible guests coming up in the next couple of weeks. There may or may not be a super famous, really amazing person coming at the end of the month. We're so excited. It's Elle's favorite author. If you've been watching our episode, you know what? We could probably tell him. Do you want to tell him? Should we tell him or should we make him wait?
Well, we've been teasing them for a while, so maybe we should tell them that my most favoritist author ever is going to be on our show at the end of the month, and it just might be A.G. Howard.
It is. We're so excited. She is going to be here talking all about how to create unique retellings and other fabulous things. We're not going to tell you too much about it.
Men, maybe.
Okay, so basically Ella's going to hijack this and just talk about her characters. And the guys
when are we going to be seeing more? No.
Okay. All right. So now I officially know I need to make sure that Elle does not hijack this episode.
No, I'll probably be blushing in the corner like, oh my gosh.
I will. I mean, I feel like now that we've kind of let the cat out of the bag, we just have to tell them this was actually a surprise to you. You didn't know about this until recently. I had reached out to A.G. Howard and mentioned that you were her #1 fan, and that you would probably just lose it if she was going to come on our show. And so I had actually been in cahoots with some author friends of ours. They knew I was doing this, and when she agreed to come on the show, I let them know. We jumped on to a video call with you and told you, and you happened to be out in the middle of a pasture with your horses and terrible reception, and you just kind of cried, didn't you?
I did. I like turned beet red, because I turn beet red when I cry. And I was crying and I was shrieking, but you guys couldn't really hear me because it was bad reception and my horse was like right behind me.
Yeah, it was so much fun though. So we did surprise Elle with that. We did tell her early to make sure she was there at the episode because it is the end of the month. So it's right after Thanksgiving. But we do have some incredible authors and bookish people coming to hang out with us over the next couple of weeks. We've got some major Christmas stuff planned. We've got some Thanksgiving stuff planned. So we're very, very excited. And then in 2019, wait till you see what we have planned. Things are happening, and we would love for you to join us every single Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time right here on Facebook.com/k.m.robinson books. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Elle, let everybody know where they can find you.
You can always find me on my website, lbeaumontbooks.com. You can find me on Facebook, Elle Beaumont Books. You can find me on Instagram, Elle Beaumont Books. But Twitter is the lone one that you can only find me at Elle Beaumont because they don't like long names. And then also YouTube, you can find some live unboxings and just fun stuff there. So Elle Beaumont, woo!
And Elle is going to be having an announcement in the not too distant future. I'm just saying you guys should stick around because big things are happening. I wonder, maybe we could officially tell them next week. I feel like that would be fun. Can we do that up?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Official announcement next week. We did not discuss this before, but I put her on the spot. So next week, big announcement from Elle Beaumont. It's going to be awesome. As always, I'm K.M. Robinson. You can come hang out with me, k.m.robinsonbooks.com, and hit me up at K.M. Robinson Books on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, YouTube, IGTV, all those fabulous, wonderful platforms. I would love to hear from you. I would love to see you over there, so come join us. We're all super social on social media, so come hang out. Lots and lots of fun, and we will see you guys again next week for more Young Adult Edition. Until then, stay inspired. Bye-bye.